Studio. Good morning and welcome. This is Freshly Pressed 981. It is the segment of Smooth Breakfast with Valentine.
And Ayo Mairo Ese, good morning.
Good morning, and it's time for us to give you detailed analysis of the newspaper stories that we shared earlier, the headlines that is, from our newspapers. And with us in the studio to do justice to the analysis, we have Waji, the corporate MC, the corporate with a K. Good morning, Waji.
Morning Valentine, morning Ayo, and good morning Lagos.
And special thanks to Big Koofs who stepped into the studio. His name is Tunde Okufi. Welcome, Tunde.
Morning, Valentine.
Good morning.
Good morning today.
Good morning. Lagos, join us in this conversation.
Yes, please. Go on to WhatsApp and send us a WhatsApp message if you'd like to react to any of the stories this morning. WhatsApp number is 0809 4440981. On Twitter, we're at Smooth981FM. Please use the hashtag FreshlyPressed981. And we're streaming live on YouTube, so please go there. And you can also send your comments to the live chat option.
Our first story is for you today from Thisday newspaper. Northern governors have finally adopted the National Livestock Transformation Plan that was initiated by the federal government to curb the persistent clashes between farmers and herders. How successful do you see this becoming?
Well, if it transitions from just a talk show, it potentially has a potential to be successful. This is an example of people close to the situation, finding local solutions to very local problems. And the closer you are to the problem, the more viable the solution will be, especially if you sensitize it or you get consensus.
Yes.
In this manner. So it's the Northern State Governors Forum that has put this together, and the purpose is to modernize pastoral activities, and they intend to do this along 6 key pillars, which is focus on economic investment, conflict resolution, which is very important, especially with all the crises that we've had, law and order, they've said. So potentially proposing new laws that will govern this, humanitarian relief, information, and education, amongst other things. So they have certain key pillars, and they're close to this. They know what is required. The herders are within their communities. They have farmers within their communities as well. Potentially, if they can find a solution that is conducive for herders, then they wouldn't transition maybe further down south into other communities where they might not be easily accommodated. So it's good in that regard. I mean, there are, as in any conversation, the governor of Benue State has said, it's a good idea, but he's going to review it to see how it matches up with laws in his state, because they already passed certain laws. There's no open grazing allowed according to the law in Benue State anyway. So he needs to see how this ties in and how this affects. But for it to be effective, I mean, one thing is usually, as you would learn, when we hear of these, I hate to point examples, but in the West, when a group of executives come together, heads of states, governors, whatever it is, all all the paperwork has been done prior to them. The coming together is okay. We've agreed to this. This is commitment, and this is
It's a Photoshop.
Exactly, and this is what these are the funds that my state is committing to this activity. I don't see any funds. There's no mention of funds behind it. So it's the kind of thing that you'd expect, special advisors and other,
MDAs, maybe?
Not even MDAs. I'm saying it's people that the governors, people. This kind of thing would have already been put together, and it's not there that they would have discussed it, right?
You're right.
So
like
you're
the
coming to
background
events.
work.
Yeah, all the background work can be done, but with the retinue of special advisors that they have, and what's the name for ministers at state level again? Commissioners,
yes.
would have done. And then the governors are coming to put a stamp and announce the amount of funds that they're committing towards it. For me, that's what's missing, or perhaps just the detail hasn't been announced yet.
Thank you for making that clear.
Yeah, Ian from Ojo is asking, so now what happens to the much touted Ruga? This government is creating a lot of tension with its not so thought out policies.
Well, how we all remember how the Ruga
Thing went down.
It was dead on arrival.
Yeah. So I mean, northern governors they're looking for solutions that work. If what has been proposed doesn't work and is sort of step down. Then you look for solutions that work. And you said they've analyzed their plans, against the Ruga to see what the disparities are and how.
But Tunde, I want to just quickly chip in because I think what blows my mind is how we like to dance around these issues, but not looking at the root cause of it. And I know some time ago I mentioned this particular issue about desertification and how that particularly affects the environment and how you combat that by planting trees. The country of Niger have effectively, over the last 10 years, advocated very serious programs towards planting trees to now combat the encroachment of the Sahara Desert into the Sahel, which is what is now beginning to create these situations. Because why people continue to move, these cattle need to eat into vegetation areas is because their lands have been wiped out. That's literally it. If their lands were populated by vegetation, they wouldn't be going anywhere. So I don't know why we're not paying attention to that. And to Tunde's point, your resource allocations and the solutions that you need to give as a northern government conglomerate is putting together a very, very robust, aggressive tree planting campaign that will now create vegetation to make sure that your cattle can be able to eat vegetation in that particular region, so that you now eliminate this forced migration attitude that we're seeing, which is what's creating the security problems. But it's crazy because in this entire conversation that was just had with the assessment of the article, that was not mentioned.
It's light on detail.
It's very light, very, very light.
Well, their proposals are light on detail.
Reforestation should be the conversation, really.
Thank you very much.
And if Ethiopia can do it, why not Nigeria?
I mean, it's done in the.
I said Niger.
Yeah,
Just
I know.
Niger have done it.
I mean, most recently, Ethiopia has, they broke the record for planting the most trees. But anyway, to get back the Nigerians who are stranded in South Africa. Most of you saw the video, most of us saw the videos of Nigerians complaining that they're stranded. The South African Commission, or rather the officials, have been stopping them purportedly from getting on the planes. But the scheduled evacuation of the next batch of Nigerians willing to return to the country may have been postponed till Sunday, although there's no confirmation on the particular time that flight is going to leave. But then they said the last flight had to be delayed for close to 7 hours. Why do you take us through the story? Seeing that 453 Nigerians are still waiting for repatriation.
Okay, well, I think what people need to understand first and foremost is that there is nothing normal about an evacuation procedure. There are very serious diplomatic and immigration procedures that need to happen, that need to be in place for that to happen.
So it's not just about people getting on the plane. And
no, it's not that simple at all. You need to make sure and have checks and balances that the individuals who are leaving your country are cleared from a criminal point of view, from a state point of view, from a tax point of view, from a legal point of view, from a loans point of view. You can't just depart that particular country without making sure that you are in a good standing. So there's some checks and balances that need to happen. So people should just relax, let the procedures happen. It does take time. 7 hours for me is not a lot of time, so I think people should just relax. I think this delay Sunday is a good move to at least make sure that those who are ready to leave are properly processed so that they can now leave in due course and there can be no issues. So if they want to come back at a later time, then that's possible. But I think for me, the larger conversation is the political will that's been put in place. And I must commend all the parties involved that actually put this thing in motion. And I always want people to understand something, especially when you speak from the Nigerian context, is that if Nigerians who have left Nigeria and moved to another country are voluntarily choosing to come back, then that lets you know that the situation in South Africa is quite bad.
Yes.
And that's something people should not ignore. People should stop acting like it's not some kind of game. I love what somebody said in this article about how the South African government came out and said, okay, well, in this recent attack, no Nigerian was killed. And people are saying that's not true. That, just because it wasn't reported, somebody didn't catch it on camera, it doesn't mean that we're not being hunted down but like dogs. And this is a very particular problem. And I think the South African government needs to pay close attention to the issues that they have at hand with regards to how they handle these xenophobic attacks, and more importantly, how they handle security situations. You cannot, in any particular capacity, beat your chest and want to be a powerhouse of the African continent if you cannot provide these basic things, which is to protect the lives and properties of individuals who live there, whether they are your citizens or not. And I'm sorry they have failed in that regard. And I'll keep saying this again, for Nigerians to willingly, voluntarily leave South Africa to return to Nigeria with all the problems that we have, is the powerful statement.
Yes.
And I give credit to the federal government, and I also give credit to the Alan
Alan
Oyema, the airpiece guy, for
chairman.
Yeah.
putting his chest out as a bona fide businessman to lead the charge and make this thing happen, and it's to let the world know that, look, at the end of the day, with all our problems in Nigeria, we do have some pride, we do have some dignity, and we will stand on our shoulders, and we will act as a sovereign, and we will protect our people, and we'll get them out of situations where they feel threatened and where they feel that their lives and property are at stake. So these are larger conversations that need to happen. So people should just relax, let the issues that are at hand with regard to the processing of the documentation happen, so that you can be outplaced back to your home country, and then you can now figure out what's next. And it's just a reintegration program. I see that there have been issues of you being given SIM cards and being given some small money. Lagos State has indicated that the trade of money, Lagos State has indicated that they will help out. So these are fantastic things that I think should be positively spun to now negate the prevailing narrative of Nigerians are just going down there and getting attacked because they're in the drug game, or they just happen to be eliciting in sex, female trafficking and all that other stuff. Yes, there are individuals who happen to do that, and they should be punished accordingly in line with the laws of that particular land. So if you catch individuals who are in the drug game or who are, trafficking women, put them through your procedures in the courts, and then if necessary, bring them to book and throw them in jail. Other than that, please do not bring that up as any kind of explanation or conversation as to why a human being should get burnt on the streets or get beaten with a stone.
Thank you. That just deserves both feasts in the air, really, for Nigerians. Let's move on to this next story from the Vanguard.
Chima has a comment here. Airpeace management have shown a good stand in doing good. Can someone tell our politicians to stop seeking compensation from the South African government and pay the sacrifice?
No, you are well within your rights to file a legal suit for damage, because if your Nigerian citizen happened to legally acquire property and that property was damaged, your government can represent you from a legal procedure to seek damages. That's very, very okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
All right. Dami sent in a message on WhatsApp. He said the difference between Ethiopia and Nigeria is Ethiopia has a young, visionary, and well-educated leader. We have Vanguard newspaper says we have no intention to inflict hardship on Nigerians. We have no intention to inflict hardship on Nigerians, is what a statement is quoted to our President Muhammadu Buhari. He's assured the federal government would not inflict hardship on citizens. What does he mean by this statement, Tunde?
It's very interesting what he means. I mean, I would have to be a mind reader in a sense, but he's laid it out. I mean, what he really means is another thing, because we live the reality here. And he said this in conversation with, he received the new executive of the Trade Union Congress, Mr. And I mean, it seems very early on in the conversation he mentioned fuel prices, and I'm glad he went there first, and I didn't, I didn't, because it's impossible to discuss the well-being of Nigerians without talking about the price of crude.
Yeah.
And we all know that oil receipts are down. And we've held the naira stable, so that means that we're subsidizing even more than what we were subsidizing before. And the question is, how much longer can we sustain that?
We can't.
So the writing's on. I see that to mean the writing's on the wall, to be honest. And we can't hide from it or run from it for too long. Something has to give. And we've been through recessions. I mean, clearly, officially, they say we're out of it, but there hasn't been a significant or upturn in the livelihood of the masses of the people, generally of all of us, to be honest. So it's interesting. But he says he doesn't want to inflict hardships on us, and it's commendable, shall I say?
Yeah, we'll be looking at another policy that came out of that meeting, of the first FEC meeting, later on during the show with regards to tax. But more people are reacting to that. So why would you make that statement if you're still looking at it?
Exactly, it's all interrelated. It's another story, but it's all interrelated. But the thing that jumps out to me in this meeting with the executives of the TUT is how easy it is to believe your own story.
Exactly.
Because he says, during our first term, we secured the nation's territorial integrity. Okay, we introduced various economic stimulus packages that support business and traders at all levels, promoted backward integration programs, especially in the agricultural sector, and enhanced our food security while creating jobs. There's so many things here that we can pick holes. It's not even picking holes at, it's in plain sight, right? So,
It is what it is.
Truncated.
The Guardian newspaper has the next story. Please keep your messages coming into our WhatsApp portal. 9.2 million SIM cards to face deactivation is a story from the Guardian newspaper. According to this report, the Minister of Communications, Dr. Isa Ali Ibrahim Pantami, yesterday said in Abuja, ordered the telecommunications operators, we know the usual suspects, and the Nigerian Communications Commission, to ensure that those SIM cards that are not registered are immediately removed from the radar. What sort of result do we expect from this?
I mean, okay, first and foremost, this is a fantastic article because it really gets into the details behind this issue, and it's around the SIM registration process, which is meant to make sure that you are capturing the identification through some kind of passport photograph, biometric, your address and a name, and another contact information, so that way you can be able to link the ownership of that particular SIM card to an individual. So if things happen, which have been happening, such as kidnapping, such as violent crimes, armed robbery, money laundering and cattle rustling, for example, where people now use the communication networks that exist in the nation to be able to coordinate their activities in a criminal manner. Now, the security forces, when you now begin to let me just use the NSA in the United States, for example, they have been in partnership with the telecommunication industry since the 1940s for the particular reason of being able to track, listen in, and understand what people who are engaging in organized crime happen to be able to do. Now, you can begin to argue that it's a violation of our rights and privacy laws and everything else, but you can find some kind of harmony balance, which is why SIM registration is very important. The challenge is that the telecommunication operators have not been conducting these things properly, and it's a real shame because this thing started in 2011.
Yes.
And I remember very vividly at that particular time, what some telecommunications operators did was use this as an opportunity to make some more money. Even though the NCC made it clear that it's supposed to be a free process, some individuals found ways to now charge people like 200 naira to be able to now register your SIM. And that now created all kind of mistrust. People were like, look, you're taking advantage of us and everything else. And then we all know the issues with MTN, and why they received that particular hefty fine was as a result of not knocking off some particular SIM cards that had not been registered off their network. So this is an important situation. So I think what needs to happen is the actualization of these policies that are being put in place for individuals to now begin to take it seriously. In my opinion, I think you need to levy heavier fines on the telecommunications operators who do not do this, so that they can wait and actually knock these individuals off their network. If you have not checklisted every single item on the box with regards to what it requires for SIM registration, then you are off my network. If I don't have your picture, if I don't have your biometric data, if I don't have an address, if I don't have an alternative number, then you don't have any business on my network. And once you now begin to institute that, you can now begin to see some more seriousness with regards to knowing who owns a particular SIM card.
I like very much that you mentioned that, because it points to the fact that yes, there could be the ulterior motives behind not going forward to deactivate these SIMs as was instructed by the regulator. Because they want to keep them paying, right? They want to make more money.
It's revenue generation. You're looking at situations where some of these guys are earning $2 million a day from data recharge and from topping up your airtime.
And where half of them is not registered.
If so, half of them is not in there. It's a philosophical conversation as to, okay, do you put money before principle? So now NCC is letting you know that you need to focus on principle and figure out better ways to make money.
So the next step now is implementing those consequences.
And then levy them. So guess what? That money that you were trying to keep and make money, you're going to eventually pay it back to the federal government because people's lives are at risk.
Right?
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Raji. Now, Ayodeji has an interesting analogy to share with us on WhatsApp. He says, imagine a woman wearing stilettos and you're wearing bathroom slippers and the heel of her shoe is on your foot. You're screaming in pain, and the lady says she didn't intend inflicting pain on you, but refuses to lift her foot off yours. So,
He's correct. Your actions and your actions are two very different things.
That's right.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to our next story here. Outrage as family buries Federal University of FUOYE. student for the Punch newspaper. So I'll just go into some of the details of the story. The victim was one of the 2 students allegedly shot dead by policemen attached to the Ekiti State Police Command during a demonstration over power outage on the campus of the institution. Now, the protest happened on Tuesday and ended around 2 p.m. without any incident until the student allegedly had a confrontation with the cops attached to the convoy of the wife of the state governor, BC FUOYE. Please, can you take us through this story? Very sad, very unfortunate.
It's disheartening, but we say it all the time. It's very sad. It's very unfortunate. It's disheartening. It's heartbreaking, and we say people shouldn't go and try their luck in places like South Africa, and those who leave for Canada and whichever other countries or climes. This is a student, right? And the reason is it's the entire system. Why were they protesting? Power outage.
Yeah.
If there was power, perhaps they wouldn't be protesting. So we're talking about almost how the knock-on effect of failure. So ultimately, the reason why this man lost his life is because there was power outage. It was to the extent, and look, Nigerians are used to power outages, so this must have been some really bad situation for them to decide to protest. And then off of the back of that, he loses his life. It's such a sad story. It's a sad situation, and guess what? This is people's everyday. This is the Nigerian situation, and we really need to do something about it. So many things to talk about. You can talk about police training, police orientation, the attitude. It's just because we've gotten used to it. It's an abnormal situation where, for regular everyday policing, policemen are armed to the teeth.
Now, Tunde, apart from them being armed to the teeth, another worrying situation here, as we see oftentimes, is that they were protesting, and some students accuse the policemen of shooting directly at the students. So, if you want to disperse a group of protesters,
it's everything we'll be saying. It's everything we'll be saying. It's a lack of poor orientation, no equipment, no training. In fact, the training they have gotten is what they've done.
That is the training.
That's the training. Let's remember, there's a time that those student protests were pretty common in the Nigerian. Student unions were a political bloc. That's been broken down over the years, and it was broken down by the military, right? But there was a time where you find police riot vans parked in front of university gates, and riot police on standby. And the training, and that hasn't really changed. And the training and education these guys get is
it's an antiquated training
shoot
system.
at them.
It's an antiquated training system that has not been updated.
It hasn't been updated
since 1959.
Hasn't been updated.
It's something we adopted from the colonial
colonialists
masters.
used it on us.
And
We're using it on our people.
End of story.
And
That's exactly that's how the policing.
Another just very final point is also the people calling for the wife of the governor to say something. So they've accused her of not
even coming out because they claim they're protecting her in her convoy.
And there's another problem. And they're right. I'm sorry.
There's video evidence, right? There's video footage just to show what the policemen did. The last disheartening thing for me is that in all of this, in the police response, they point and they mention students who have been arrested. They vilified the students and said that they were attacking policemen, destroying police property, and they've arrested a number of them, and they're looking for those who committed the dastardly act. What about the policemen who shot at students?
Thank you.
No mention of that.
Biggie from Ketu says, please tell the president to open the border. Things in the markets now are very expensive. We're facing hardship, and our senators and representatives are collecting hardship allowance. Help us open the border. Okpemi says, we have LI, litigation interception in Nigeria, and ONSA and SSS use it. They tap into our GSM when they want to. Okpemi prays, thank you. Deepo says, deactivate SIM cards with additional cost imposed on users to swear affidavits at replacement. They also demand valid ID, which is okay. People now teleconnect through other means. Please tell them to remove the affidavit requirements to retrieve SIM cards, as it has made it more expensive to retrieve.
All right, let's move on to this one. FBI raids Nigeria, US, UK, 7 other countries to arrest 281 internet fraudsters. This is from the Vanguard newspaper, watching. Please take us through this.
Okay, the gift that keeps on giving. All right. So as we know, this situation has been going on quite a while, and the U.S. government, through the vestiges of the FBI, had invested close to $1 billion in making sure that they take care of these individuals, that they have now characterized as a new term, which is BEC, Business Email Compromise, which is basically Yahoo Yahoo. Now, when you begin to look at the number of individuals that have been arrested, 281, 167 of those constitute Nigerians, which is 59%. And then if you go further into the article, what's now happening is that the FBI have set up very strategic initiatives in partnership with the EFCC in Nigeria to be able to apprehend people who now partake, either if it's through assisting with money transfers or moving the money, etc., etc. And that is the rot of the issue. But there's a powerful point from this article, which I really, really enjoy, which is now pretty much warning people that you should, think twice before you transfer that money, or think twice before you accept something, because what now begins to give any kind of life to these situations are the recipients on the other end. That if you look at a suspicious email, ask a few questions, do some verifications, and not just jump into it because it just seems juicy. The reason why people engage in these money transfers, because if you're going to get commission 1%, 2% off a $1 million deal, that's enough to buy 2 houses in Lekki. So it's something for you to now begin to process from a very individual or philosophical point of view. So credit to the EFCC, credit to the FBI for working hand in hand to apprehend these individuals who are criminals. Under no circumstances whatsoever am I going to engage in any kind of conversation from anybody that now begins to excuse this behavior. Wrong is wrong is wrong. I could care less what your conditions are that point you towards that. We can talk about that another day, but if you commit a crime, you got to do the time.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, very quick comment. And so decades ago when this man, Nwaji Jibunoh, was arrested for serving time. So bottom line, it's not the first time that that operatives have come into the country. But for me and a couple of other people, it raises a question of sovereignty, right?
No,
and even if I know they're working in partnership with, but in the most of the West, a foreign agency doesn't come and effect an arrest in your country.
You do, because you have Europol. Europol goes to America to arrest criminals.
So,
Mexico
with local law enforcement affects the arrest and hands over.
EFCC is affecting the arrest and handing over to the FBI.
So that's what's in the.
No. Even beyond this article, that's what's been happening. The FBI can't come here and effect.
So that's but they have.
I know
what's happened. Have done that before because I mentioned it because of no,
it's actually not possible. So they cannot arrest without Nigerian law enforcement approval. It cannot be done. That is a breach of sovereignty.
Okay. I mentioned it for a reason. Okay. There have been instances where
the FBI were the arresting officers.
Yes, because in past instances they were not effective or they didn't succeed in working with local law enforcement for the purposes of inefficiency, corruption, and then they come in and effect the arrest. So I really don't know how these cases happen. So I hope we've gotten our acts together a bit more, and we're the ones doing the effective arrest and handing them over. Thank you very much.
I hope we've gotten our acts together a bit more. I think that's the key word, the key term there. Let's quickly go on to our next story. Manufacturers, employers, others reject bid to hike VAT. A number of people have already been having this conversation, so I won't go into the details, but I'd like you to just weigh in on this. But following the decision, so excuse me, just one, please.
All right. Sorry. So there's a proposal and it's been passed by the Federal Executive Council to hike VAT from 5% to 7.2%. That's a 2.2% increase. And then when you layer that on to the president's statements about not wanting to inflict hardship on the people, you begin to wonder. It's speaking. There's no other way to describe it. It's speaking out of two sides of your mouth because there are real implications to this. For one, the pressure that it adds, additional pressure that it adds on business and on people. The purchasing power of the populace is weak. There should be VAT should be closely related to purchasing power.
Yeah.
Purchasing power is weak. So off of what reason and how do you expect people to be able to accommodate this? And now ultimately that's on the one hand. Then it adds pressures to the business, because it's not in every instance, because purchasing power of people is weak. It adds pressures to businesses in that they will not be able to, in some instances, not be able to pass this cost on to the customers. Remember, people can't pay anyway. So the business now has to find a way to absorb it, increasing the cost of doing business. We say we're implementing things to ease the cost of doing business, make doing business in Nigeria a lot easier, but this adds pressure to it. Not forgetting the multiple, beyond VAT, the multiple taxation, right? Recently, they're also passing laws for businesses to contribute towards a police trust fund. Right? So we're putting too much burden. Instead of increasing the VAT and increasing tax on those of us who can pay or those who have been paying, why not increase the tax bracket? We said get a lot more people paying tax. Not enough people pay tax. We all remember the list of, I think it was about a year ago, that list was published of, supposedly, titans of industry and big men in the country and their tax contributions. And it was laughable, right? People are not paying their fair share. We're not getting enough people to pay. So why putting pressure on people who really can't do anything, anything about?
Thank you very much. Mr. Laba says, I'm loving Nwaji and Tunde's analysis this morning. Keep it up. Thank you very much. Somebody's asking me for water.
Thank you very much.
Ozzy says, guys, no, Nigeria is under FCPA laws, so the FBI can come here to arrest. I personally know of cases that FBI came and picked up the guys.
Yes, guys.
I thank you, Ozzy. But we wrap it up here. Special thanks to you for tuning in, and special thanks to you, Nwaji, the corporate MC. People have been asking for your Twitter handle, so at the corporate MC. The corporate is a K, right?
Yes.
And Tunde Okufi is at Big Cups.
Big Cups with a K.
That's right.
All right, Lagos, we're on a break now. When we come back at 8:15, it'll be time to talk sports in the locker room with Tega.
Yeah.
The headlines.
Yeah, those are the issues. They come and so I know.
No, because
they come and inflict arrest.
Hold on.
Interesting.
Here's
I
my
wouldn't have
point.
ever imagined that.
And this is where we need to be careful with these narratives. Okay, this is where we need to be very careful with these narratives. Even if they are the ones making the arrest, right? Which
They have to have
which I
local
doubt there
authority.
it is not possible that it has not been done with the strict approval of your corresponding security force. That's all I'm saying. It is how.
Watch it, no doubt.
Because now,
this
if
argument,
it's that easy, they can be coming in every time.
So
to do
no. So
whatever
obviously,
they
they
want.
don't just stroll in to come and do it.
Yeah.
They don't stroll in to come and do it. What I was pointing at,
This is
and
a
what
very
this points at, is that the fact that they don't trust the Nigerian police. There's no
Yeah,
other way to
that's-
describe. They
they're
don't
not-
trust
No, they
our
don't trust our
security
police,
agents.
but they trust the
We don't
EFCC.
even
That's what I'm
trust
saying.
our
They don't
security
even
agents.
trust the EFCC.
No, they
We are.
do.
That's why they trust
No,
them
I'll
a
show
bit
you.
more.
A
They
bit
trust
more,
them a bit
a bit
more.
more, yeah.
But for them to still be coming into
But they just
to
commended.
execute.
But they just commended the EFCC.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
come
they
on
want
now.
to do
That's
that for
media talk
diplomatic,
now.
yeah,
Of course
diplomatic
now.
delay. I don't think-
Right.
But hear me out.
I would like us to get to a place where we're a lot more effective and we're better trusted.
What's
An
in-
FBI agent will not come and effect an arrest in the UK. We're talking
They
of
actually
we're
have.
talking
No,
of
but
matters
they-
of small law, because it starts to erode.
No, that is not true, because when they traced terrorists that were complicit in the 9/11 attacks, the UK government was like, look, we don't have the security apparatus to make these arrests, but bring your individuals. They will work with MI6 and make these arrests. And they were the ones at times shooting people in fucking London underground stations.
No,
So my
not
point,
the
no,
FBI. Not the FBI. not
they
the CIA.
have.
Tunde, are you here? Okay, I'm coming.
My point is, these things happen all the time. I think we